It's a completely different culture and atmosphere.
What up, guys? You're tuning in to Nikki MGTV for another military video for all your military video needs. As always, I'm here with two Greenside Corpsmen. You guys have been asking for this video for a long time, so I'm bringing them to the channel. So obviously, I'm not Greenside. These are both veterans. They are from What Is Fit podcast. If you guys want to see what they're up to, they were previously Navy Corpsmen, and they have both different paths in which they came to be Navy Corpsmen. So
yeah, my name's Matt, Greenside Corpsman, FMF. First LAR, time at this dog over here, Raleigh. You were there for 2.
I was there for 2 years.
I was there for 4. 4 years too long, but I loved it. Didn't want it the other way. I had the decision to get out or go work at a hospital. Didn't want that life. Got out on Greenside. And yeah, now I work at the Naval Medical Center as a civilian.
well, at least not the military side.
Yeah, exactly,
with that,
civilian. So it's a little bit different.
My name's Raleigh. I'm 26. I'm from Eureka, California. I was a corpsman for 6 years. First year was basically just training, and then 3 years on Greenside with that guy for 2 years at first LAR, and then I changed units and I went to 3-7. Then I went to the hospital in Rhoda for 2 years where I met this guy, and then I called it quits after that.
I don't have any Greenside experience, so I guess the first things first, how did you guys both become Greenside Corpsmen? Like, what was your path? Because they were so different.
I went to Corps School, which is the Corpsman School, which you obviously talked about before and stuff like that. But I was a fleet returnee, so I was in the Navy before I went to Corps School, which we'll get into a little bit later. There was one set of orders to 1st Marine Division, and I knew I wanted, like, the reason I became a corpsman is I wanted to go Greenside, be with the Marines, and there was one set of orders, and I'm not the best of students, but since I was a fleet returnee, I got those orders, so which pissed a couple of other people off. If they watch this, they'll know who they are. But yeah, I luckily was the only person who got orders, and I wanted to go to California, and I got orders 1st Marine Division, and my dreams came true. Yeah, Camp Pendleton. Yep.
That's where it's at. Where did your Greenside journey take you?
I guess my path was a little more normal. I was really lucky. I got contracted as a corpsman right from the get-go. Like when I went to MEPS, even before boot camp, I got a corpsman contract. I only had to wait like a month for it. And there were a ton of people there who were like, oh man, I wanted to be a corpsman. Yeah. I was like, well, too bad, I got it. I was really lucky that I got to go straight from boot camp to Corps School. And then in Corps School, you choose your orders based on class rankings if you're not a fleet returnee anyway.
You don't get hooked up.
And then, there were a ton of 1st Marine Division orders to Camp Pendleton. I went there from Corps School, did field med, and then I went straight to my unit from there.
Yeah, so both Camp Pendleton, would you guys say it's one of the better duty stations for Greenside?
For sure.
Like as far as benefits, location.
Yeah, you're in San Diego.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Doesn't get better. Okay. Everyone we talk to that they're like, oh, we're in like 2nd Division. I mean, even people like Hawaii, but they say you get island fever after like a year and you've done everything on it. So people but I would say Southern California and Camp Pendleton's the best if you can get it. I mean, if you have to go to Miramar.
That's a good transition actually. So Miramar is an air base. So there's different roles that you can play within the Marine Corps Greenside of being a corpsman. You have air, you got division, and then the last one we probably shouldn't talk about, but logistics or group. Yeah. So, because no one cares about them.
Yeah, like you said, 3 different parts. I think one of the common misconceptions is that only corpsmen can go Greenside. So there's actually corpsmen, there are personnel servicemen, and then RPs, or religious program personnel, or whatever they're actually called.
Religious program specialists.
That's the one. Yeah, those guys. Definitely the majority of it is corpsmen, though. Yeah. But you're either attached to division, and division is like your infantry, artillery guys, or you're attached to wing, which is obviously anything that has to do with aviation, or there's also logistics, and that's basically all of the support units that the Marine Corps has, because everything is just there to support the infantry. So it all kind of revolves around the infantry, but those are the 3 groups that you can be a part of as a corpsman or a PS or an RP. Within all of those parts of the Marine Corps, you'll get attached to specific units, battalions, etc.
You guys both went division. What was your favorite part of being with division? Like, why is that the best part of being a corpsman? Because I've never been there.
It's what everybody thinks of. Like when you think of the Marine Corps, or you think like if you hear like in movies or just with anything really, if somebody's like, oh, he's a former Marine, you obviously assume that he's just like a war-fighting badass dude, psychopath, right? Yeah. And that's obviously not the case. But with division, it's like you're doing like the ground pounding work.
When you first get there as a fresh corpsman, your life sucks because you do everything. You do the dirty work. You're going on all the ops.
Yeah.
You're the fucking safety corpsman for everything. You do all like the bitch work pretty much, but in retrospect, that's rite of passage is how they look at it.
But you being undead airman too, you did the same stuff.
Yeah, so it's
in aviation.
So
he got 2 helpings of.
Yeah, I knew it.
Those.
The good thing about I think going undesignated as opposed to and going right in like Raleigh did as a corpsman was I knew what the Navy actually was. I was on a ship, working on the flight deck, and I knew what that Navy was. And then I came to this Navy, and it didn't really feel like I was in the Navy, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Just coming in, and I already had a little bit of rank, but you're still at the bottom of the totem pole. Like there's like guys that have been in longer than you, like in that position, but they're lower rank, but they still have authority over you because they know what's up, and it's a completely different scenario, and that's the way it should be. I think if Raleigh will agree with me, because there's guys that have been there forever that knew so much more than what we did, and you were like. There's a little bit of rank, but not so much.
You would say experience, deployments, like
deployment is the biggest thing.
Rating as a corpsman.
If you deployed, then you have like right over something. But if you haven't deployed, right? Would you say that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to ask this because I'm in a class with a lot of people that have cars. Like, does that matter?
Oh yeah,
Like combat action rating definitely matters.
That's like I mean, it's not. It doesn't supposed to. That matters. If you have your FMF pin, it matters. Like, that's, like, a big thing. If you're, like, a E3 with your car and you have your FMF pin and then there's, like, a second class with, like, nothing, that's, like, a big, like, they're, like, you're, like, don't tell me what to do and stuff like that. But that's like, the military in a retrospect.
It's just the culture.
But you don't get that, I don't think, and I think you guys will agree with me, and especially Raleigh, is you don't get that at, like, other commands. Going green side is, like, would you say, a privilege, Raleigh?
Yeah.
I'd say it's, like, a privilege.
I'd say so. And I always tell people it's about the respect that you get for that job. Like, when you went from Greenside to the hospital, you didn't get the same respect. Like, you're like, dude, I got total respect from all my guys before. I knew my job. Like, there was no issues. And then you go from being up here to, like, total gut check.
They're going from Greenside to a Blue Side Naval Hospital was complete culture shock. Some people join the military and they get in and they're like, oh man, what did I just do? That's how I felt once I got to the hospital in Rota, because it was just so different. You go from, like, first of all, there were girls there. There weren't any girls in division, so it was like, what is this? And then nobody has any military bearing. Yeah. But then they have military bearing for, like, the weirdest things. Like, the CO will walk by and somebody will be like, hey, what's up, sir? And me, being Greenside Corpsman, and, like, before that, I'm about to, like, lose my mind. Yeah. But then when it comes to, like, bake sales and stuff like that, it's, like, the most military, like, strict operation ever at a Blue Side hospital. I remember being told several times by several different people, all much higher ranking than me, to, like, calm down within, like, the first 3 or 4 months of being there. Like,
why? Because you're at parade rest?
Yeah, you're, like, you're standing at parade rest, like, as they're talking to you, and they're like, oh, please stop, you know, and they're like a lieutenant commander. It's like an 04, you know, and you would pretty much never talk to an 04 on Greenside at any point, like, during the time you're there.
Unless absolutely necessary.
Unless you're in trouble for something. Yeah. And the only 04 was, like, the battalion XO, right?
Yeah.
So why would
someone that works in
why would you?
Wow.
Yeah.
Totally different world, like, going hospital, like, I've only worked with officers, like, intimate, all the time.
Yeah, I can see that. I just see that as well. Like, I never work, like, right now I work, like I said, at the Naval Medical Center, but, like, and the way that the corpsmen work with the officers, it doesn't work like that. Like, you have your medical officer in division, and then you'll have, like, a first class that's an IDC or a chief that's an IDC, and then that's it. Yeah. And then everyone else is enlisted.
But also in the hospital setting, like, it wouldn't work that, like, it can't work having you at parade rest doing all the military. Functionally wise, it doesn't. Well,
it's
Rota
it's not
different.
practical. It's not practical.
Yeah,
at
it's
all.
not practical, and that's the issue. Is that you go to such spectrums of, like, hospital, Marines, the ship, CBs. Like everyone has their own rating of like military bearing.
Well, I will say this though, like with like being a Greenside Corpsman, I think the biggest perk is like you are with the Marines 24/7. Like everything you do, you're with them, and you eat, sleep, and shit with them. And if they like you, then they take you under your wing. Yeah. But the best part, I think, is that you get out of everything because you're like, hey, I gotta go work at the BAS, and I'm not throwing anybody.
Battalion Aid Station.
Yeah, Battalion Aid Station, or I gotta go do this, and then everyone's like, yo, where the fuck's Doc? And you're just doing your own thing, and then you don't get any repercussions. So that's like kind of like the sweet stuff. Yeah, you can get involved as much as you want, and
at the same time, it can be difficult because you have two separate chains of command.
That's true.
So the way it worked for us getting to division was. There were like 18 of us that showed up at this unit on the same day, and we were all fresh from field med. Our chief, there's one chief corpsman who is, the senior medical dude for that, or the senior enlisted medical person for that battalion, and he assigned us to our companies within the battalion. And Matt and I were in the same company. That's how we got to know each other. But right from that moment on, you have your chain of command in the Battalion Aid Station. So your
Navy chain.
Navy chain of command, your LPO, and your lead petty officer, and your chief, and stuff like that. You get assigned to a platoon within your company, and now you have like your squad leader and your platoon sergeant and your platoon commander and the chain of command within that company of Marines. They will think that they're in charge of you, and your Navy command also thinks that they're in charge of you, and they just butt heads all the time. Like the platoon sergeant will say, hey, we need to be up on the trucks, like working on maintenance and doing this stuff. And it's like, I'm a corpsman, I give shots, like I don't fucking work on trucks. So I'm going to the BAS and I'm going to do sick call or whatever. And then your chief ends up talking to the first sergeant, they yell at each other, you get caught in the crossfires. And it's really frustrating sometimes because people will be telling you to be two places at once. You actually stand up for yourself and you say, staff sergeant or gunny or whatever, like, I need to be in the clinic, like, doing my job because I'm the corpsman. And usually if you have, the right amount of bearing and you're, like, respectful when you talk to them and you have your shit squared away, they are understanding of things like that. You do get out of some of the Marine stuff.
Did the military bearing change at all between when you were with Navy guys and with the Marines? Or do you feel like they both, like, meshed together? Like, if you're talking to Chief, would you be like, hey, Chief, how's it going? Or would you be at parade rest?
It depends, because I'm, like, different than most people. I think Raleigh can agree with me. I would be like, I was very cool with like all the chiefs that we had. Like I still talk to them like now, like I see them all the time. So for me, it was a little bit different. But I think the beautiful thing about being an FMF corpsman is you get so tight with that BAS because it's like 24 of you, let's say, that work together, and you're the only Navy command on their whole area, depending on where you are. And like usually each at 1st Marine Division, each battalion has a BAS assigned, and then that's your group. Like, those are your guys, and you get close with them. And like I said, when you first get there, it's a little bit of like, yes, it's your more, no, chief, yes, chief, like, yes, sir, no, and then it slowly becomes more of a family atmosphere where like everyone will call everybody by first names and stuff like that. So I think it's just over time. You still have the military bearing, like that that's the chief, and those are authority figures, but it's at the same time it forms sort of like a family. Yeah. Where in that sense, but if you need to be, you can turn it on like that. I would say.
Right place, right time.
Yeah, exactly.
As always, I always get asked this: what is the typical day of what you guys would do as Greenside Corpsman with the Marines? Obviously, you're not turning wrenches to maintenance stuff, but you're also supposed to be doing medical readiness and all that kind of stuff. So what was the typical day that you guys would experience?
I would break it up into 2 different types of typical day, and one is in garrison, so like the normal day, like when you're at camp and everything, and the other days are when you're in the field, because you do spend a good amount of time in the field. I think our first field off was straight Monday through Friday, and that was pretty cool. But first of all, in garrison, it's like you get up, and the first thing the Marines are doing is PTing. So these guys, they're just rolling out of bed, throwing on their PT gear, and going down to the grinder for company formation.
How much PT, like, what should they be ready for if they're, like, what level of PT are we talking about?
It depends how motivated you are.
Yeah.
Greenside Corpsman?
Motivated. Me, not so motivated.
Yeah.
Greenside Corpsman, just run and get used to being in your boots and utes and moving around a lot. You can get a hold of to prepare for it or whatever. If you can get a hold of a ruck and throw some weight in it. And if you can get a hold of like a, you know, a weighted vest or a plate carrier or something, definitely just move around with that on. Like do a bunch of air squats, do a bunch of push-ups with that kind of stuff on, because you don't want your gear to bog you down too much when you're actually trying to accomplish a mission. Just run a lot. Do pull-ups. If you can't do pull-ups, the Marines are gonna hate you. Like they'll just think you're weak as heck. And a lot of them can't do pull-ups anyway. But
but if you do pull-ups, it's respect.
It definitely is, because they'll look at a corpsman and they'll be like, is that guy gonna be able to throw me on his back and run with me? And that's pretty extreme, but like it's also very basic. Like if you can't do that, then they're not gonna trust you that much.
So meaning you gotta be in shape, ready to do what they're gonna do.
Absolutely.
Just like they would do that for you. So hopefully.
A typical day in garrison would be like company formation first thing, and then at the clinic, what's happening like either right as company formation is happening or right afterwards is sick call. So guys are coming in with their colds and their tummy aches and their twisted ankles, and they're trying to get out of PT and all this stuff. So we would usually get together. There were like 4 or 5 of us company corpsmen, and our senior line corpsman he was an HM3 when we checked in, and he was the guy who was kind of supervising us while we did our medical stuff. The Marines would come in and we would see them. You know, we would write our notes and present them to the medical officers and stuff, get them treated, and then get them out of the clinic. And that's your first mission for the day.
Morning,
The other thing is medical readiness. So making sure they have all their shots, and if they need to do any like exams or, you know, physicals, if they have to have labs done or something like that, you need to like basically go track down those Marines. Like you try to call, you know, use the chain of command and everything, but sometimes it really just does come down to like walking over to wherever they happen to be, if they're working on the trucks or whatever, and like marching them down to the clinic, and then you know, sticking them with needles and then sending them on the way. But it's very like clean cut. It's like, hey, you guys are, you know, your medical readiness is only at 80%. So by the end of the day, you need to be at 85. Or whatever.
Field's different. Field's like depending on where you go. So Camp Pendleton is massive, and unless you get lucky and you go to 29 Palms, they're both about the same. With the field, you wake up, I would say pretty early, depending on what the op is, and then you have like the ops, the war games that you're gonna play for the day. And pretty much it's a lot of sitting around. There's no like really sick call or anything like that.
So it's just kind of like slow, and then you have peaks of like.
It's like fun. Camping with war games is what I guess you could call it. Yeah.
There was a difference too between being in the field with LAR and then being in the field with 3-7 with like because when we went to the field with 3-7, like you would which was like a traditional infantry unit, different than light armored reconnaissance. Field ops that we did there were it was usually like a bunch of ranges, and then you're just with your platoon, and you were like doing one range and then hiking to the next range, and then doing that range, and then maybe sleeping there, and then the next day hiking to like 3 more ranges, and then staying there. It was really interesting to see the difference between how all the different units, or how those 2 different units did their field ops. Because you could cover a lot of ground with light armored recon in the vehicles and everything. Like you'd be driving up these huge mountains, and then you'd be like down on the beach an hour later, like all over the place. At nighttime, you do a lot of training with your night vision goggles and stuff like that. You make sure your the little laser on your rifle is like lined up with your scope and all that stuff. There's a lot that you do in the field. I'm sure there's a set schedule somewhere, but for the guys down at the bottom, they just you just kind of stand by until somebody tells you what to do, and then
that's where you corpsman up.
Do it. There's there are no sick call hours. You know, it's like if somebody has a headache, whatever, they just come up to you, give them some meds. If somebody, you know, they cut themselves or whatever, and
you bandage them up,
patch them up, and you just kind of do everything on the fly.
Sounds like there's not much really super organized. It's not 9 to 5 or job, definitely. If you're doing this.
No, it's not.
Every day at the end of the day is like, what time do you think we're gonna get off today? Because like you're released from medical again with the 2 chains of command. You're released from the clinic, and then you have to be released from your company before you can really, you know, call it quits for the day. You might get off at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
1600 for you military folks.
Yeah.
Or you might get off at 2000. And in the case of our first chief, he might have you come back to the clinic until 1 o'clock in the morning anyway.
All right, guys. If you guys have any other questions about what it's like to be a corpsman, green side, blue side, any side, just hit us up down in the comments down below or on Snapchat or Instagram, as always, where we'll answer your questions. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later. Love you.
Be good, guys.
I used to think the fame and money was the motivation until I toured the world and met the people face to face and understood that the power was harnessed in that basement. It ain't about the money, you know the right.